अभी हम कुछ टेक्निक्स यूज करते हैं स्टार्टिंग के लिए, जैसे मूविंग योर हैंड्स, मूविंग योर हेड, body tapping, and it just wakes the body up.
So it's more like the emotions, the experiences that we store in our body when the movement is ongoing, when the body is set in motion, things start to surface, and that's how we begin the journey of our mental health or mental well-being.
To just go into a different state. Movement gives a lot of.
Today's episode is with dance and movement therapy practitioners.
Hello, we are Ang Tarang.
The very first thing I thought about asking both of you can answer is when you introduce yourself as a dance and movement therapist. So how do you define your work, to others? I'm very curious to know about that.
So usually when we approach people, when we say dance movement therapy, okay, we are dance movement therapy practitioners, the first question is, okay, can you just explain what is it about? What do you do exactly? People are really curious and it sounds very fascinating to them. कि मतलब क्या होता है इसमें, कैसे एक्टिविटीज होते हैं, डांस होता है क्या? So there are a lot of questions that comes up. And the way we define our work is firstly we mentioned that we are from the field of mental health, and then we get into how we use movement as a medium to heal, empower, and just a journey towards mental well-being.
And also being authentic at the same point. So generally बच्चों को हम जब observe करते हैं, so that is another example that people relate to a lot. So while I'm happy, do I jump with that excitement? When I'm angry, do I want to stomp and say नहीं मुझे अभी चाहिए? Have you ever done that with that body language? So when it comes to children and very daily life, again examples, what they witness, it helps them relate कि okay, yeah, probably we have been doing in our childhood, but in this phase where we have grown up, where there are many things, we have forgotten to let out that child in us. So it also reminds them about it.
Another, not example but more like an analogy, what we use is like if there's a glass full of water and let's say we put some salt inside of it which is settled down at the lowest level, and when we are creating a movement inside the water, the salt is getting mixed up and it's coming towards the surface. So it's more like the emotions, the experiences that we store in our body when the movement is ongoing, when the body is set in motion, things start to surface, and that's how we begin the journey of our mental health or mental well-being. We can process a lot of things. So it's just an analogy that we use for our
A
body.
little bit like when there was a dance and movement therapist on this podcast before, so she talked about this कि किस तरीके से the memories जो है are not only stored in our mind or in our brain, basically not only stored in our brain but at the cellular level, मतलब in the entire body parts. So she was explaining that, and then I just revisited that podcast before shooting this. So I thought that let me have clarity about how it helps actually, how the therapeutic approach, movement therapy and the therapeutic approach helps in healing, because when we say therapy, it is mostly about healing aspect is what people expect. So how does it work and how does it help in the healing?
Okay. While we talk about dance movement therapy, the most spoken topics or themes are firstly trauma. So when it comes to trauma, I don't know if people are aware of it completely or not, but the most of our emotions, like even Shruti mentioned right now, especially happiness or something that we've been carrying since a very long time, it is stored in most of the parts of our body. And when it comes to healing, it is about catharsis, it's about emotional expression, right? So we try to shake it off. The most that works with people who have a relationship with trauma is how we get it out of the body, or how it is expressed in a way that hasn't been in a very long time. So when I say shake off, then like a bottle when it's shaked up, तो अभी हम कुछ कुछ techniques use करते हैं starting के लिए, जैसे moving your hands, moving your head, body tapping, and it just wakes the body up. Like this, I think there are other techniques where swaying, gentle swaying, a very slow motion of our body helps regain and regulate back our autonomic nervous system, which has not been, which has been facing some rigidity or some barrier, let's say. This stomping, this gentle swaying regulates it back and brings it back to the present, which helps the individual to gain back that balance temporarily. So that is
And
there. Yeah.
when we are specifically talking about trauma, what happens is sometimes our brain and our body are stuck into the patterns of undergoing that trauma, right? So we are set into some kind of repetitive thoughts, or let's say repetitive behaviors. So to break off that pattern, wider the range of movement possibility that we're exploring, it opens up different channels in our brain. And when I say channels, we're talking about different neurons forming up, different neural pathways. It's termed as neuroplasticity, yeah, in scientific terms, but we could look at it as uh, gaining new perspectives, gaining new ways to look at things, and just breaking our old patterns, because the brain is set, not only the brain, both brain and body is set into a feared state. And when we move, we are breaking through that pattern and it empowers us.
Yeah. And also, just in a very simple manner, it's a very beautiful thing in DMT, which is one of the pioneer has given. It's about a circle. Every group therapy happens in a circle. So whenever a lot of people are there and they listen to each other, they share energies in group. That's a collaborative healing which takes place, which also acts as a catalyst so much in a group setting, that already the emotional healing starts when you're in a social connection where you're hearing different thoughts. So this the starting one was where it was very individual based, but when it comes to a group setting, it also collaborates a lot of emotional healing together.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And when you're in a group, I think it's also applicable to other group therapies. Like we gain different perspectives and we give support, and we also take support from the same circle. And also, when we move like in a circle, there is a rhythm that is created.
Right.
So people are not really coming and talking in the first place itself. There are definitely reflections on the later on phase. But when we move in a rhythm, it's more like feeling the belongingness and being together.
Yes.
So that itself becomes a center of support for people.
There's like one more question regarding, this. Are like all the audience, like so far, how was your experience? Is everyone comfortable, going ahead and getting along with this therapeutic movement?
Okay. So yeah, with the experience and exposure that we have had, just like therapy, when it's a therapeutic process, it is not just about the positivity or the empowerment. It is also about facing the fears, telling the truth to your own self, right? So definitely, in the start, there is resistance towards, let's say, movement or the whole process of healing through movement. But it definitely becomes the work for us to do to build that space of trust and the rapport with them, where we use like different techniques, let's say mirroring, or maybe on a later part of this video we can have some demonstrations as well. But yeah, it is more about creating that safe space for them,
Right.
and the non-judgmental space where their body is not judged. Like, we cannot dance on the streets, right? We would be judged for that. So this becomes a space where people can move safely and without any barriers.
Yeah, I think like how Shruti said, us going there and holding their space, but also that it's intimate for them, right? We are entering into their space. So equally respecting that and letting them be themselves, while we also have a rhythm and we also can curate at the same moment. So it's a relationship, it's a dance that's going on over there. And like Shruti mentioned, we start facing smallest or tiniest of our fears while we start moving and we discover certain things. So the rapport that we share with the group, or the times that we go, how many times do we go over there, how are they opening up, or even if they are simply just enjoying for the starters, that's also a step. That's an acknowledgement of their emotions. So that's all.
So, when we talk about group settings, like we've worked more with group settings.
Yeah.
In a group, it is possible that, one person is not engaging in movement very voluntarily.
Mhm.
There is some resistance. And maybe if we are, moving this, their movement could be this, but they're still with us. They're still
Right.
moving with us, right? So they're still in the process. And even if it's a group process together, each of the person over there has an individual journey
Yes.
towards widening their movement and also the different possibilities of healing.
Yeah.
True, true. And I can relate to it. So how it is like a little bit similar to the traditional form of our talk therapy also.
Right.
So अगर हम इंडियन पॉपुलेशन की बात करें so talking about the traditional dance practices and dance and movement therapy now, and how this has been integrated. Like I'm sorry, let me put it this way. I have seen your clips of dancing together in the classical dance forms on your Instagram channel. So they're so wonderful and amazing. So I was curious, do you integrate the classical dance form into the therapeutic approach or therapeutic methods?
So, firstly, thank you for the compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And talking about classical dance, or let's say any other movement oriented with the Eastern philosophy or the Indian traditions. Okay. So, there are elements that we take from that. Majorly, what I know is we use more of breath uh, included. Like just like in yoga, the use of breath and movement is together. We use breath in our work. And when you talk about classical dancing, I think there are elements of stomping that we use, but it is never like, you have to sit in a posture and then you stomp. So it is not directly the movement captured from the particular art, let's say Bharatanatyam, but it's just a movement and the inspiration that's taken from the classical or the traditional
Yeah.
art forms.
Also, one very good thing about different dance forms in general is that they give you a good movement vocabulary. But the difference is that this one is choreographed, the one, let's say the classical dance is something else, and here you have all the freedom to do it however. So, a good inspiration from this is that you can give them vocabulary, but yet give them the freedom to do it. So that is a very it's a very good thing for people to have or understand. Like also Shruti mentioned, smallest movement also means something. But if they're doing smallest, maybe ये कुछ और है और ये कुछ और है, so it's still them increasing that. And also, like
Yeah.
she said, stomping, using different hand gestures, it creates new neural pathways. It breaks that rigidity, it breaks that pattern, and not only they explore it in an individual level, they explore the space around them, so they own that space around them. At least we try to curate and provide a space where they feel confident enough to, yeah, okay, let's move. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And generally, when we talk about movement, like people feel that it's more about, moving hands all the way, moving the hips all the way, and also the legs. But also, one more inspiration from the classical dance could be just focusing on the face. Like Shruti mentioned, those little movements with your eyes, or, the lips, or just moving your ears up and down, your eyebrows, because these are the movements that we don't really focus upon when we say, just let's move. Nobody would start moving just the eyes. It would be more of the whole body
Yeah.
movement, right? But this area again lets us express a lot of it because the face is the expression, right? Majority of the time.
Starting slow.
Yeah.
And then moving ahead
Right.
holistically. Yes.
So, when you were, talking about the expressive part of the approach, the therapeutic approach, uh, I was just thinking that, is it like um possible to perceive, or are there any tools and techniques that have been taught for to the like in the dance and movement therapy training that helps you to perceive that okay, this is something which might be meaning this, like for example maybe there's a particular movement which is um, expressed and is reflecting some certain emotion of happy memory, or this is a movement which might be reflecting some form of trauma, because we talked about that. So yeah,
Correct.
just one got curious to know about that.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, actually, there are certain kind of movements that we were going through, like through our movement. And while we also embodied, we realized a few insights of our own. There are different terminologies, but just to keep it simple, while I am, let's say, moving around in the room, okay, I can go straight to a place or I can use indirect movements also. एक ही गोल पे जाने के लिए. So the way I move or the path that I'm choosing to move would also say a lot of things that how am I deciding to get there? Am I confused? Do I know where I'm going? Or do I need a different path all in all? Am I
Yeah.
restricting myself while I walk towards there, etc.? Also, a lot of close and open movements. Would you like
Yeah.
to share? Yeah.
So, more of like, open movements. Usually, open movements can help build us confidence. Just the open postures, just like if a person just is sitting on a chair and if the person is sitting erect with all their chest open wide, we might perceive them as confident people or a person who has something, is like confident in the whole space. But someone with a very couched back sitting with this posture might be feeling a very different emotion. There can be certain things that is going on. These are perceptions that are generally done in the society, right? But when you talk about a therapeutic space, more than the judgment and the analysis, it is also about the client or the participant to reflect their own journey. For
Hmm.
me, mindful, small or mindful movements could be this. For some people, mindful movements could be going up wide. And if we talk about certain interpretations, let's say I'm moving constantly in touch with the ground. So it could also, mean like I require a lot of a grounding right now. My body needs that kind of energy. And let's say if you're moving a lot towards the up, it could resemble like reaching out to something. It could be hope. So it could mean differently, but on similar levels, like hope, reaching out.
Hmm.
So yeah, these are the things. And we also had a topic under chakras, if you know, the energy centers of our body.
Mm,
So movement related to different energy centers of our body, we had interpretation regarding that, particular mental health needs or general needs that we have in our life. So activating different energy centers and just moving towards the goal, that could also be done. And for a more scientific perspective into this, Laban movement analysis is also used.
Yeah.
Interpretation of the movement.
Band.
Laban movement analysis.
Hmm, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the most frequently used tool to analyze in a group setting. While we were also told that while our internship was going on, we used to make different kind of notes. We used to discuss with our supervisor, and we used to go according to the need. We did not exactly get into the proper assessment of the techniques or the tools, but we used to curate sessions according to the emotional update of the group. I would say there was a
Yeah.
common goal, but we used to work according to every day, every single day of how is the energy of the group today, later, etc. Also,
Yeah.
just not only the body movements, but I think also in talk therapy, you would know that a therapist would always watch a person's body language. Am I wide-eyed? Am I just guarding everywhere? Am I sitting at the door? What am I choosing right now? Where to sit? How to do? The smallest. So it's just not DMT. All therapies offer many things, but the one thing that we can never hide is our body language. So we
Yeah.
won't be able to lie ever over there. So that's what I think we also love about this. It's very authentic, and as in the name, it's expressive arts therapy. So art is never about perfection, it's about the process. So I think that's what we are in currently and always be in love with.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for saying that. It was very helpful to so many people watching around that it's not about, perfection. It's about just expressing. Moving on towards, knowing about any misconceptions or maybe myths or fact about the DMT, dance and movement therapy. Would you like to shed light on that?
Okay.
I think the most prominent one is the question that we mentioned earlier कि इसमें डांस होता है क्या हमको सीखना पड़ेगा क्या and also sometimes questions like when we introduce ourselves also as कि हमको training है classical dance में so uh, थाता तैया होने वाला है क्या we've heard this also okay because it's people with curious minds and they want to know कि क्या होने वाला है कहीं हमें जज तो नहीं कर लेंगे हमें कुछ सीखना तो नहीं पड़ेगा so definitely this comes up as the first and the very prominent myth and we break it right away कि नहीं आपको डांस नहीं करना है आपको मूव करना है and like Shruti also mentioned earlier it is about authenticity end of the day it's all about your expression
Yeah.
so yeah
But it's also not devoid of dancing. That is also there. There's something called as free dance in dance movement therapy. तो वो भी बहुत elaboratively बोलना पड़ता है कि ऐसा भी नहीं कि डांस नहीं है because there are all sorts of movements in it,
Yeah.
right? But also there is no choreographed dance, which is the main aspect of it. So it's very free. It's what you want to do, not how people are telling you to do. So that is one thing. It's not long term. मतलब इसका
Correct.
there's no long term benefits to it. That's also there. कि अरे okay, I'll feel good right now. Okay, this is an eclectic approach. So let's just pair it with some event. थोड़ा मजा करा देते हैं लोगों से, which is for a fact. Of course, you would probably go out smiling only. Maybe if our goal is playfulness, joyfulness, you'll experience that emotion. But it also does not mean that it only explores the positive emotions that we have been taught of abhi tak. It goes deeper. So there's more to just happiness. There's more about why am I feeling sad at this moment? If I am feeling sad right now, what kind of movement can I do while I'm feeling sad? So it is much deeper. So it goes long term if you are consistently moving, I would say. Consistently practicing that movement, not only of one kind, but consciously putting that in your lifestyle. So that is also there.
Yeah. And also that DMT does not have a lot of scientific background. Like again, not to demean any other kind of therapy here, but we see a lot of research on CBT, right? So because there are a lot of studies that have been conducted, but again, when we talk about movement, it becomes a little restricted because there are still assessments and things that are being standardized according to the cultural group, according to the population,
Yeah.
India especially. तो ये थोड़ा डिफिकल्ट हो जाता है कि हम मेजर कैसे करें बट जस्ट बिकॉज वी कैन नॉट मेजर समथिंग डजंट मीन दैट इट डज नॉट हैव एन इम्पैक्ट
Yeah.
because like one of the pioneers Shohini Chakraborty ma'am we know that she's been working since a very long time with trauma survivors and the whole model of how the trauma survivor becomes a leader towards the end of it with the power and the magic
Survivor
of
to
movement.
leader model.
Yeah.
And their organization's name is Kolkata Sandev, and she was the main professor while we were learning dance movement therapy from
Yeah.
Tata Institute. And like her idea of this entire thing, while she's been practicing for such a long time, we can find her work a lot, her research papers a lot, but still not much because there are limited pioneers also who have brought DMT into India because it's still very unconventional, right? It's not well. I don't know. अभी तक बोला नहीं गया अब तक बहुत लोगों को तो अभी भी वो
Awareness.
लिमिटेड है हाँ अवेयरनेस नहीं है इतना so yeah I think we all of us in a way we can try to put in expressive arts therapy and tell people okay this is also something that could work for you.
So, I was thinking, so is there like, have you experienced any like kind of population where it, works best, or any domain where it has worked best?
I think domain would be so we have worked a lot with women.
Okay.
So not saying that any other kind of gender wouldn't like receive it in the same way or what, but our domain lies over there, and उसी population में जो अलग-अलग backgrounds से आते हैं, let's say rescued females and the transgender community and the community caregivers basically. So there are different reactions to it, no doubt. We cannot exactly say which worked best with one specific population, but I think this entire process is where we would appreciate one thing for sure, that everyone was a sport and was open about it, to at least create a thing that okay, we're okay to receive it.
Yeah.
That awareness takes a lot of guts, I would say.
Correct.
So yeah, that's something.
Yeah, and when we talk about like movement, again, it's our primary mode of communication right from our birth before we learn any other language, right? So, something that we've experienced is people are open to receiving it. Like in the first session, there is definitely openness. There might be little resistance when we go deeper into the process,
Yeah.
but people are open towards movement because I think there's a lot of dancing and movement already intertwined with our culture and tradition. So it also becomes कि हम उसको culturally कितना relevant बना पा रहे हैं. And for even population, बच्चों के साथ भी जब भी काम करते हैं, they are very open.
Yeah.
Like they are open to receiving it because they have like a very wide range of movement.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And they'll match and they'll have more energy than you, actually. So you'll also vibe with them. It's like that. And also, like she mentioned, resistance hai kuch population mein, which is also very culturally ingrained, the way society talks with us. So again, myth breaking is the every step of life for every topic, I feel, because
Yeah.
all of us are conditioned in such a way that we also function. Kabhi unconsciously, we also do things that we're taught, legit taught about. So
Yeah.
for us also, the myth breaking goes on. For them also, the myth breaking goes on, and then the process eventually evolves.
Yeah. So, like, just a participant, I would like to, appreciate from one of her sessions. So, like, in the first session, she was more like कि बाकी के जो participants हैं, उनका age मुझसे कम है, तो चलो उनको ही move करने दो. मैं ये सब में क्या, मैं कैसे करूँ ये सब? It was that question. But I would really like to appreciate her journey throughout because towards the last session, so in the last session, it is more about reflection, sharing, and a closure with celebration. thoda bahut.
Yeah.
So she was moving very freely with all her hands up, and मतलब वो खो गए थे literally जब वो free dance के बारे में जैसे हम लोग बात करते हैं at that point.
Yeah.
So it was her own journey from breaking that own myth and also moving against the societal barrier कि एक एज के बाद डांस नहीं कर सकते, मूव नहीं कर सकते फ्रीली, अपना ऑथेंटिक एक्सप्रेशन नहीं बता सकते क्योंकि अभी शायद हम थोड़े बहुत रेस्पॉन्सिबल एक पोजीशन में पहुंच गए. बट बीइंग रेस्पॉन्सिबल would never put upon a rule कि तुम authentic नहीं हो सकते, right? You can always be authentic and open and just express yourself.
Yeah. And also, like we said, that while working with the community caregivers, like Shruti mentioned, when you are a caregiver, you don't really think that your feelings are that important. While in that process, we were just liking the way that them actively thinking about also a few things and taking a step forward made a lot of difference for themselves. Because culturally, like we said, there are many barriers कि ऐसे भी हमें रिफ्लेक्शंस आए थे कि मेरे घर पे बोला है कि यहाँ नहीं जाना है क्योंकि यहाँ तुम नाचने जा रहे हो. सो डांस इज ऑल्सो सीन एज अ लॉट ऑफ सेक्सुअल इन्विटेशन फॉर पीपल. So they feel तुमको वहां जाके ये सब क्यों करना है. There are questions also like that. So we address that personally also before and after the sessions. Sometimes that okay, has this happened? How did you address it? Did you assertively tell what you want? And obviously, assertiveness is some other concept all in all. But just giving them a vocabulary of how could they go about it in such a setting, while they cannot actively do or straight away say no कि नहीं मुझे तो करना ही, but actually telling them the benefits, that why we are going there, etc. So we tried in this process that while they actively participate, where they are coming from, the people should also know why they are coming here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And when we were also talking about resistance earlier, especially since we have worked with women, there is also like the societal resistance. When Shruti mentioned, like dance is also looked at it as something like a sexual invitation. So our body has already reduced the range of movements that we can actually move towards. Now in particularly abhi ke matlab years mein, let's say if I'm not a dancer, or let's say if I'm not associated with any kind of movement, maybe as a woman I am not moving my body in the way that I want to. It's restricting my own expression. But when we actually look at the feminine energy, the basic and the beauty of it is all about expression.
Yeah.
And it's not only impacting us to the mental health level, but it affects us bodily a lot,
Yeah.
experiencing different kind of psychosomatic symptoms. And it leads to a very intense thing on the later life.
Right.
So it is something that we really need to look upon and just open up spaces for people to just move freely the way they want to.
And also, body is such an intimate feeling, right? So, already stigma to hai about, sensuality or anything else, the way I want my body to be as. So, अगर मुझे यही restrictions है, then मेरे को अपने needs कैसे पता चलेंगे? So, there are level 1, level 2, level 3 barriers, but you do not know anything about your body then.
Yeah.
So, this is a time where I think stepping away from the stigma, or at least trying to get aware of what's going on, and then stepping away from it, knowing your body, knowing it's your need, it's your desire to express in a way to want something.
Yeah.
So yeah, also that.
या काफी लाइक बहुत ही ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट पर्सपेक्टिव यहाँ पे हाईलाइट किया श्रुति आपने, लाइक थैंक यू सो मच फॉर दैट. एज बोथ ऑफ यू वर मेंशनिंग दैट हम रेस्ट्रिक्ट करते हैं हमारे मूवमेंट को, not just because of the looking at it as a sexuality aspect, but I think we are conditioned it that way, like right from the beginning or childhood. um, it's so common and natural to have both the trait and both the movement, like feminine as well as masculine as a human being, right? And that's what I think you both were also trying to say is that if there's a male, if there's a person, male person, and then he might be having that kind of always there in the subconscious that okay, my movement should be in such a particular form that it is being portrayed as a masculine or a man, or maybe a female is also being conditioned in
Yeah,
Yeah,
makes
correct.
sense, makes sense.
similar form of movement, like we say the elegance and all those aspects, which are very like common in our dance forms also, in our classical dance forms also.
Right.
And I think that is also one of the thing which is taboo, which I just now realized it might be very much accepted by female population, because I think slow and steadily they are opening up and not you know
Yeah.
constructing it to just particular movement. But I think yeah, there's a lot, there's a long way to go in this
Right.
in
And
this
also a learning experience, actually, we were very inspired by two, three of our facilitators, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So two, three of our facilitators who came in for certain modules, they were males. And we actually were not expecting a lot of male facilitators in
Yeah.
this setting, to be honest. Because हम भी ऐसे आए थे, हाँ DMT है, movement है, okay, female facilitators will be there. But the way they were engrossed in the process. एक था हमारा इंटीग्रेटेड आर्ट्स का मॉड्यूल था, एंड in wherein we witnessed them moving in the space, two three
Yeah.
males that we know, and we could see there's no ऐसा hold नहीं था उनके बॉडी में, too much of fluidity, a lot of flexibility while in the space, which मतलब we are also conditioned, no?
right.
We did
Yeah.
not expect.
It's a surprise element
Yeah.
when you look at that.
Yeah, so that is inspiring that males are not they are not shying out, they are not shying away from this, that okay, this is something we cannot get in, this is something not we can't do. But even with that sensitivity, with that beauty of what they were facilitating to us, it was so well communicated that it was a broader domain ki, okay, now males can also receive this the way
Yeah.
it is. But of course, it's a slower process. Maybe it's an eventual process for many of them.
Right.
So,
And
Yeah.
as you think, like as you said that you found it very surprising, like the way the flexibility and the fluidity they had. I think to be honest, since we are also being conditioned like right from childhood, initially वो होता है कि there are like biases in which we are being brought up in. So ये जब हम एक्चुअली देखते हैं, that actually helps in reducing and thinking again, like making us think again about our perspective and our
Right.
this. So I think yeah, that's how I think group session is wonderful way of breaking such taboos around
Yeah.
society. So yeah, before getting towards the concluding and the wrapping up of the part, I would love to have some kind of hack or some exercise that you can give out, and which will help us out to incorporate that in our busy lifestyle. Maybe a quick exercise.
Okay. I think more than a hack, we would just introduce certain simple movements that all of us can do while we are, in a busy schedule. We are sitting for long, we're feeling down, etc. Choosing a space, a comfortable, your private space, or wherever you are comfortable in, and just start with slow movements. It could be like this. It could be swaying. You could use your body parts, anything. You could just move your hands like this while you sway. Doesn't have to be rhythmic. If you want it to be rhythmic, fine. You can shake off. You can jump. You can also go around the space where you are while doing that. Again, you can slow down a little bit at your own pace. This is kind of just waking up your body a little bit from what you've been doing, just moving around to just go into a different state. Movement gives a lot of happy hormones release. You might have heard of endorphins, dopamines,
Serotonin.
yes, and it creates something up there, and your body feels like that. And while I said moving around the space, it's just exploring what is around to come back to the present. You can touch certain things, you can feel certain things, look around, and वही जो monotonous चीज होता है वो break हो जाता है वहाँ से.
And another basic thing that you can do, maybe towards the end of the day, is something like a body mapping thing. You can simply just close your eyes with like an open posture with your legs a little wide, and close your eyes and just pay attention to the part जिसमें सबसे ज़्यादा tension feel हो रहा है. So you take a deep breath in, you breathe out, and slowly you focus on the part which has a lot of tension with it. And then slowly when you open your eyes, it could be your shoulders, you start just moving it the way you want to, or just simply tap on it. जहाँ पे भी you feel. And very specific to the urban lifestyle, there could be a lot of things stored in this part of the body because we sit a lot, right? There is a very low range of movement. So you can just do this or just be a child and do this. It's just totally up to you. So yeah.
Also, if it's possible for like people, we can also change the place where you're at and do it at some other place. जैसे हम जब भी walk करने जाते हैं और थोड़ा change लगता है, so the setting also changes in your mind. It can for temporary relaxation, etc. So that really helps. And apart from that, I was just saying that apart from that, the smallest of the movements, even while you're sitting with your head or just breathing. Breathing is, I think, the most essential part that we have forgotten in our rushy lifestyle. So just getting back to the body, getting in touch with your body, your emotions,
Yeah.
knowing how your breath actually feels. That's a lot of privilege that we have.
Thank you so much for such a, soothing activity, and which is like very simple and easiest way to unwind also, what we can say.
Yeah.
It is also a kind of reminder and recalling of all those mindfulness aspect which you highlighted upon. So yeah, thank you so much, Shruti and Shruti for
Actually, Shani,
Yeah.
actually, it's very creative. It's very creative of you to bring in people and let people know through your channel that these kind of things exist.